The routine of the daily inspection of the wireless operator starts in the cockpit. He begins by making sure that the remote controls of the RT equipment work freely and are secure. When the tests of the RT instruments are completed, he locks the send-receive switch at off. Well, that's the cockpit group done. Now the fuselage. He opens the panel housing the RT crate, which he examines together with its contents for security of mounting. He makes sure that the wiring doesn't foul the aeroplane control cables. He sees that the 3-point plug for the mic-tel circuit is inserted in the correct socket. If the aeroplane has flown, he changes the 2-volt accumulator for a fully charged one. He examines the airframe structure in the vicinity of the accumulator for signs of spilt acid. Next, he examines the connections for cleanliness and security. A dirty connection would impair the efficiency of the set very considerably. Continuing in the fuselage group, he examines the aerial for security. He pays particular attention to the security of the mast and to the cleanliness of the insulation panel. Dirt and foreign matter on this are going to reduce its insulating properties. He sees that there's no fraying of the aerial wire. He inspects the insulation and lower attachments of the aerial mast for security. And then goes to the tail unit and sees that the aerial insulator and attachments are secure. Now a practical test of the system and a two-way ground test of the RT equipment. That finishes the wireless operator's inspection, and he makes his entries in the aeroplane maintenance form and signs it. The daily inspection of the electrician is an important one. His responsibility is on the increase with modern aeroplane equipment. He starts by examining the engine-driven generator, the mounting, drive, and the air cooling pipes for security. He then inspects the cable connections to the engine-driven generator for cleanliness and security. Now round to the other side of the power plant to examine the electric starter motor, the magnetic relay switch, and the remote battery socket for security. Then the cable connections to these, to the electric starter motor, the magnetic relay switch, for cleanliness and security. In the cockpit, he sees that the visual and audible undercarriage warning indicators and their connections are secure. He operates the undercarriage main indicator switch to the on position by means of the throttle lever and sees the indicator board lights correctly. There are 2 lamps behind each window. Should any lamp be defective, he would replace it. He tests the working of the blind for night use. He sees that the indicator and connections are secure. He tests the working of the audible warning by manipulating the switch in the undercarriage. He then examines and checks the ammeter for correct zero reading and security. Next, he sets the generator switch to the on position. Now he tests the identification and recognition lamps by operating them in Morse and steady positions. Next, he ensures that the lamp in the gun sight dimmer screen is operating correctly. The landing lights are retracted by a pneumatic system. He checks their operation and also the operation of the mechanical focusing control. He ensures that full and free movement are obtainable, thus satisfying himself that they are not being fouled by any cause. He inspects the switch in the pressure head heater circuit for cleanliness and freedom from moisture. There should always be a smear of grease in the slot in which the tumbler operates. He is now making sure of this. He switches on the pitot head heater for a period of not more than 5 minutes. The pitot head must be kept clear of frost, which is likely to affect it at high altitudes. Otherwise, the airspeed indicator, which it controls, would not read true. The electrician gets out of the cockpit and tries the head, obviously warm, showing that the heater element is serviceable. All tests in the cockpit group having been completed satisfactorily, he sees that the electric switches are in the off position. The fuselage is his next group. He examines the 12-volt accumulator for security and sees that the securing bolts have the nuts locked. If an accumulator is not installed, the leads should be connected to the dummy terminal block, this. Now he is examining the accumulator itself and its stowage. He examines the adjacent airframe structure for signs of acid leakage and finds all in order. If he found any signs of corrosion, he would report them to the flight NCO. He then tests the voltage of the 12-volt accumulator under load. Should he find any cell reading less than 2.1 volts, he would remove the accumulator for recharging. He checks the fuel gauges on all tanks to see that the electrical system is functioning correctly. He is now going round to ensure that all lamps and electrical equipment are securely fixed to the aeroplane. He has to get underneath to view the downward recognition lamp. He tests the navigation lights by operating the switch. Now the landing lights. Now the cockpit lighting. Now he is putting all switches at on in order to test the insulation between the poles and earth. After that test has been completed, the electrician's inspection is finished, and he proceeds to make his entries in the aeroplane maintenance form and sign it. We shall next watch the instrument repairer's inspection. Seated in the cockpit, he checks the 0 setting of the rate of climb indicator. Now he sets the subsidiary pressure scale of the altimeter so that it reads the height of the aerodrome above sea level. He tests the blind flying panel for security and the anti-vibration devices for signs of broken springs. He sees that the bayonet unions of the oxygen supply system are undamaged. Next, he checks the contents of the oxygen cylinder. This must be at least 7/8. Should the gauge show less than 7/8, the cylinder must be taken out and a new one put in its place. The instrument repairer's inspection is ended by winding the clock and setting it to the correct time. After which, he makes the necessary entries in the aeroplane's maintenance form and signs it.